There's a reactionary, a revolutionary, or a saint, a messiah, or a man to kill. He struggled against violence all his life, but he was assassinated. He wanted to chase the British from India, but peacefully. Yet independent India was born in a torrent of blood. He placed himself in great personal danger to try and bring massacres between Indian Hindus and Muslims to a halt. On the 30th of January 1948, a team of terrorists, manipulated by an extremist political party, fired 3 shots into his heart. In 1930, he gave an interview to an American journalist explaining his commitment.
If England does not grant your demands, are you prepared to return to jail again?
I am always prepared to return to jail.
Would you be prepared to die in the cause of India's independence?
It is a bad question.
The brother of Gandhi's assassin was difficult to track down. He spent 21 years in prison for his part in the killing. Now 85 years old, he remembers every detail.
I am Gopal Godse, brother of Nathuram Godse. Nathuram Godse was the one who assassinated Gandhiji, then known as Mahatma Gandhi. The year was 1948. I do not repent for having participated in the act. We felt, let 10 persons go to the gallows, but let this person not live.
In Delhi, India's capital, there are many sites dedicated to the memory of the man whom the poet Tagore called Mahatma, the great soul. The Samadhi, the place where, following Hindu custom, Gandhi's body was burnt on a funeral pyre of sandalwood. The Gandhi National Museum and the house where he was assassinated, also transformed into a memorial. Each day, crowds of visitors flock there. They come from Bengal, from Kerala, Uttar Pradesh or Manipur, the 4 corners of India. Rich or poor, each Indian citizen feels the need to make this pilgrimage. The impression is to be in a temple rather than a museum. The walls are covered with images that honor the great moments of Gandhi's life. The people take off their shoes, even to approach the spot where Gandhi was hit by the assassin's bullets. Frescoes, photographs, his personal belongings, notebooks, his walking stick, letters, his blood-stained clothes. Everything which related to the life of the father of India has been preserved. Gandhi was born in 1869 in an India where the British were unchallenged rulers. Like his father, he decided to serve the ruling power. His family were of the Banya caste, the hard-working traders of Gujarat, a region in northwestern India. He was married off at the age of 13 and would have 4 children with his wife Kasturba. When he was 16, his father fell gravely ill. History paints Gandhi as a devoted son sitting by his father's deathbed, but this is not strictly true.
Gandhi felt that he had a duty to nurse his father at the time he was dying, and hopefully he wanted to actually be with him at the hour of his death. But on that particular day when his father became critically ill, he felt more attracted to his wife, and he was actually in the act of making love to her at the moment when his father died. And it's a lot of historians who've looked at Gandhi's life feel that this was really something which coloured his whole attitude to his sexuality and led eventually to his deciding to renounce all a sexual relationship with his wife.
As he was loyal to the empire, he was allowed to study law in London. He became a brilliant lawyer and settled down in South Africa, where many members of his caste had set up business. He stayed for 20 years.
Initially, in his early years, Gandhi in South Africa had lived the life of a rich lawyer. He'd had quite an affluent lifestyle. He hadn't really changed, become this very ascetic person, dressing in hand-spun clothes and so on. He was wearing Western-style suits. He was living well.
It was in South Africa that he experienced racial injustice for the first time. An Afrikaner threw him off the train, even though Gandhi had a first-class ticket, because he didn't want a coloured in his carriage. Gandhi was a changed man when he returned to India in 1915. The business lawyer became a political agitator. He gave up his business suits to wear a dhoti, the wraparound cloth of the Indian peasant. Gandhi travelled around India by train, always in third class. British supremacy was, by now, fiercely challenged. Gandhi gave anti-colonialist speeches in every town and village. He spoke of human dignity, of justice, and of independence. Throughout the country, militant nationalists organised protests where people came to burn their English-made clothing. Gandhi launched his Charkha movement. Translated, this means the spinning wheel. He asked each of his countrymen to spin 200 yards of cotton each day so they could boycott the cloth produced in the mills of Manchester and Bradford.
But it did become a symbol of a commitment to the nationalist cause, to every morning to sit down and to get out your spinning wheel and to spin your cotton thread. And they became very skillful at it. You know, they would spend hours every day doing this. And Gandhi saw this as something which was almost a spiritual task of spinning, you know, for the good of the nation.
In 1930, Gandhi organised a 3-week march across India of 358 kilometres to reach the Sea of Oman, simply to gather a handful of salt. Symbolically, he was breaking the monopoly on the salt trade, which had been held by Britain for centuries. Gandhi and his followers were arrested, but the person who Churchill malevolently called the half-naked Kafir had won. Images of Gandhi were seen all over the world.
Gandhi had a great sense of symbolism and of how to communicate with the masses. This sounds contradictory and somewhat paradoxical. He was a man, after all, who wished first and foremost to be an aesthete, who renounced worldly things. But he was a great politician and a great communicator.
Gandhi's weapons were civil disobedience and non-violence. The British responded by using their truncheons. The repression was constant and often brutal, often ending in bloodshed. The prisons were full. Gandhi was jailed 7 times for a total of 4 years. His political colleague, Pandit Nehru, was jailed 8 times, serving 9 years. From beginning to end, the struggle for independence was organized by the Congress Party. Gandhi was its soul, and Nehru its chief organizer. These two men shared a blind confidence in their success, despite their personal differences. Gandhi from the lower middle class, the ascetic clothed only in a dhoti. Nehru, the upper-class Brahmin, well-dressed and elegant, but with ideas rooted in socialism.
Somebody like Nehru, who embraced socialism in the 1920s, Gandhi was prepared to tolerate that because he believed that Nehru would always basically be loyal to him. So that he gave Nehru a sort of certain amount of rope, you could say, to go his own way. But Gandhi would always be holding it and able to draw him in whenever he felt, he was going to too great an extreme. And Nehru, well, he knew, that it was in his interest to keep in with Gandhi, but he also had a genuine affection for Gandhi. Nehru's own father had died in 1931, and in many respects you can see Gandhi as sort of as taking over that position of the father figure for Nehru, and so that they do have a very close relationship despite their differences.
And they were very different, not least in their view of religion. Nehru was openly atheistic, which was rare in India. Gandhi was steeped in religious principles. Each of his meetings opened with prayers. Hinduism, the majority faith, was omnipresent. Hindu precepts governed every aspect of life. It was the basis of the caste system. But Hinduism had always been a tolerant religion, never imposing on the views of others. The second largest religion in India was Islam. Enormous mosques had been built in the north by the Mughal princes who wanted Hindus to convert to Islam. Muslims represented a quarter of the population of the Indian Empire. Later, after the creation of Pakistan, this fell to nearly half, to 12%. Today, India, with 120 million Muslims, is the 4th largest Islamic country in the world. Muslims and Hindus had lived in intelligent coexistence, but suddenly religion became a card in the political game for independence. It was in the 1930s that the Muslim League became a political force, with the short-term aim of defending the interests of Indian Muslims. Its long-term hope, once the English had been kicked out, was the creation of a Muslim country, Pakistan, the land of the pure. At the head of the movement was Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who'd known Gandhi for many years.
Both Gandhi and Jinnah came from Gujarat. They were Gujarati-speaking people. They were both lawyers who'd been educated in London, had received their legal training there. So in a way, they had a lot in common. But unfortunately, they came into very sharp conflict quite early on after Gandhi returned to India.
In 1945, Gandhi decided they must surmount their differences and went to meet Jinnah at his home in Bombay. They met for many days in a row, and Gandhi never gave up trying to dissuade Jinnah from his obsession for a Muslim Pakistan. He assured him that Muslims would have their proper place in an India which would be laic and democratic. He went as far as to offer him the job of the first Indian Prime Minister once Britain was ousted.
Jinnah ne supporte pas
Jinnah would not accept the affection,
ou en tout cas,
or in any case, the pleas of Gandhi,
de Gandhi, parce qu'il y voit,
because like many Muslims, he suspected a Hindu attempt to outmaneuver the Muslims.
englober les musulmans. Au nom de
Gandhi claimed to represent universalism.
Gandhi prétend incarner. Gandhi
He did not want to be thought of as a Hindu, but as an Indian.
Mais il l'est tellement de manière
But everything about his style was totally Hindu.
le montre. Il est
His renunciation of politics,
en politique,
the aesthete of politics,
en politique,
that was actually Hindu to the core.
Par excellence.
Simla, the mountain station to which the English would flee to escape the heat which preceded the monsoons. It was there in 1946 that the leaders of the Muslim League and the Congress Party came together to discuss the crucial issue of post-colonial India. How could they possibly live side by side as Gandhi had dreamed? Nehru's natural sense of diplomacy broke down in the face of Jinnah's intransigence. After 3 weeks, the Simla conference was abandoned, without result.
Jinnah launched his campaign in 1946 on a single theme. The Congress was a Hindu party with a Hindu as a leader. If, after independence, they won elections, it was certain that Muslims would be absorbed and dominated. To survive as a community, they needed their own separate state, Pakistan.
So in 1946 he decides to take the matter to the streets. Jinnah had been a strictly constitutional politician before then. He'd been loyal to the British. He hadn't ever been involved in civil disobedience campaigns. He'd never adopted the sort of tactics that Gandhi had adopted. But in 1946, in August 1946, he decides to take the issue to the street. He's going to show the power of Muslims in India, and he has the Direct Action Day.
On the 15th of August 1946, Jinnah gave the signal and Calcutta was put to the torch. 5,000 died and 20,000 were injured. In retaliation, the Hindus massacred Muslims. Reprisal followed reprisal across the entire north of India. The butchery spared neither women nor children. On the Hindu side were many extremists who deplored the fact that their religion, led by a hierarchical clergy, wasn't pugnacious enough. Hindu tolerance was for them an inexcusable weakness which had, for centuries, allowed first the Mughals and then the British to enslave the Hindu multitudes. Now, the Hindu nation must assert itself. Its men had to rediscover their virility.
The idea was to beef up the Hindus morally as well as physically. Militants gathered in each town and village where there was a branch of their movement. Morning and evening they held lessons in religious ideology and physical training, with the objective of doing battle with Muslims who were enemies in the midst.
Hindu nationalists hunted down Muslims. Extremists of the Muslim League tore the Hindus to pieces. Gandhi was horrified. He went on hunger strike in Calcutta, refusing to eat while blood was being spilt. He refused to abandon his dream of an India where the two communities could live together in friendship.
And Gandhi was watching all this. He was doing his best. He went to East Bengal. He walked around the villages where the Muslims had massacred the Hindu landlords. and he talked to the Muslims. He really put his life on the line. He went without any protection, just a few of his followers walking on foot, and he managed to persuade the Muslims there that it was not right to do this.
As he walked, people would throw glass pieces on the way, they would throw excreta in his path, and his answer to that was to even remove the very simple sandals which he used to wear in order to walk, and start walking barefoot. This had a tremendous moral impact, and the parallel that we like to draw is between, in the Christian tradition, the crucifixion of Christ, that is suffering for humanity, tormenting the flesh in order to make the moral appeal.
And then there is other retaliation by Muslims in East Bengal, where they're in the majority. They turn on Hindus and attack them, massacre many. Then Hindus in Bihar turn on the Muslims, and again they do the same in UP. And then in the Punjab, we see the Muslims retaliating by attacking the Sikhs and killing a lot of Sikhs in March 1947. So the whole thing is blowing up in a way that's becoming really completely uncontrollable.
In January 1947, Lord Louis Mountbatten, the great-grandson of Queen Victoria, arrived in Delhi. He would be the last Viceroy of India because he had come to dismantle the empire. He wanted to do this as speedily as possible, and with Nehru and Jinnah set about partitioning India.
Gandhiji said again and again, leave India to anarchy, but don't partition it. We will sort it out. Once you are gone, then we will see how to do it. But the British said, we will go only after you decide who should get what. And that is how partition became absolutely inevitable. So Gandhiji went to the extent of saying that partition could only take place on his dead body.
And then, of course, the Congress leaders decided that they would accept the demand for partition. They felt that Jinnah was able to stir up so much trouble for them that if they didn't concede that demand for a separate nation state of Pakistan, then he would cause terrible disruption within India after independence, and perhaps compromise the integrity of the new Indian nation state. It would perhaps collapse.
A commission, led by Lord Radcliffe, mapped out the frontiers of the future states of India and Pakistan. 2 Hindus and 2 Muslims helped him because he knew nothing of India. That's why he'd been chosen, so as to be perfectly objective. The Muslims wished to create 2 separate Islamic states in the north, where most of their people lived. East and West Pakistan were 2,000 kilometers from each other. The main problems were in Bengal and the Punjab, where the frontiers were impossible to line. The Hindu and Muslim communities were totally intermixed. On the 15th of August 1947, India and Pakistan were finally split from each other, to the great happiness of Lord and Lady Mountbatten. Recorded for history, the emotional voice of Pandit Nehru, who would become the first Prime Minister of independent India.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
But the morning after the independence festivities, the Hindus who found themselves in Muslim Pakistan and the Muslims in Hindu India fled from the villages in search of safety. Muslims took the road to Pakistan and Hindus to India, each to the shelter of their own religious communities. Two great movements of people in opposite directions. The greatest exodus in human memory. 10 million refugees who would be ambushed by robbers and armed militants. 1 million people were massacred. Nobody was prepared to assume responsibility for the tragedy, but the Hindu nationalists branded Gandhi as the guilty one for having agreed to the partition of the country. Today in Delhi, at the headquarters of the Hindu National Party, Hindu Mahasabha, the great assembly of Hindus, its president still maintains that only his organization had defended the integrity of India.
Akhil Bharat Hindu Mahasabha was the only organization in India which advocated with full courage and expressions that we shall never tolerate division of India. We want united India, one India.
So although the Hindu nationalists claimed that this was a vivisection of India and it was something that the Congress had betrayed the Indian people in agreeing to, in fact it was very much a part of their own programme to have a separate state, and it's always served their interests subsequently to have a separate Pakistan state, which is always in antagonism to India, as always a representation really of India's other, its opponent.
Several months after their independence, the two brother-enemy states went to war for the first time over the disputed region of Kashmir. The population of this province was Muslim, but the Maharaja and his forces were Hindu. Both India and Pakistan claimed this Himalayan region as its own. Today, after 3 such wars, Kashmir remains the main point of discord between India and Pakistan. On the 9th of September 1947, Gandhi moved into the Delhi home of his friend Birla, a rich captain of industry who'd always supported the Congress Party. And on the 10th of January 1948, he began another hunger strike as a means of stopping the massacre of Muslims in India. Hindu refugees couldn't understand Gandhi's compassion for the Muslims who were massacring their kinfolk. But he went further with his hunger strike conditions, demanding that India should actually give a share of India's treasury to Pakistan.
Cette grève de la faim, Gandhi la met en œuvre pour forcer.
Gandhi began his hunger strike to force the Indian government to give the newly created Pakistan a part of the British Indian treasury, which had been handed over to India.
Gandhiji, that stood in favor of Pakistan and said that I shall go on hunger strike, I shall die, and the 55 crores should be given. Then only I shall release my fast. At that moment, some youths like me decided, you will not die of hunger strike, you will die of bullets now.
This was completely unacceptable to the Hindu nationalists, that Gandhi chose to starve so that India would respect the financial clauses of the partition agreement and to transfer 550 million rupees to Pakistan, which had already started bombarding Kashmir.
So on the 20th of January, there was an attempt. As far as I remember, 7 of the accused were present at the prayer meeting. They were Nathuram Godse, Narayan Apte, Vishnu Karkare, Madanlal Pahwa, and Gopal Godse, that is myself.
Gandhi was the target of a murder attempt on June the 20th. But Gopal Godse, the shooter, wasn't able to reach the window from which he planned to fire. He hadn't thought to bring a ladder.
So I tried from the window. I could not reach my hand also. It was so high, even inside. So that was for half a minute or so. So I just came out. Sadarlal asked to ignite a gun cotton slab near the boundary wall. He did it. Then he was caught by the police. Further actions did not take place. So we all ran away from the place.
The plotters fled to Pune in order to plan a second attack. Their colleague, who'd thrown the homemade bomb, had been arrested. Under torture, he'd named his accomplices. In India today, the question is still asked, how come the police knew the names of the plotters, yet for 10 days did not try to arrest them?
Mahatma Gandhi used to sit in the manner as you can see in this picture. This was taken on 29 January on the eve of his passing away. He would address, people would be sitting here, some would be very angry with him, that they would think, I don't know, there was a thinking amongst them that Bapu did not do enough to prevent the partition.
On the 30th of January, Nathuram himself arranged for a pistol, automatic pistol, and went to the prayer ground, evening at 5 o'clock or maybe 5 minutes late.
The columns indicates the exact spot where Gandhi was felled by the assassin's bullet. The assassin lay in waiting for the Mahatma in this corner. As the Mahatma reached this spot to go there, he stepped forward. He took 3 steps, bowed before Mahatma Gandhi, and he shot him point blank 3 bullets. And if you see the photograph of Mahatma Gandhi with the bullets, it's almost, it looks like a garland. It's almost in a semicircle. The assassin garlanded Mahatma Gandhi with bullets, and I think at that one moment, Mahatma Gandhi rose from the ashes, from the earth, and he became larger than life.
Nehru would say on the radio, "The light of our lives has been extinguished. There is nothing left but darkness."
Nehru decided to outlaw the movements that, in his view, were responsible for Gandhi's assassination. Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS. 20,000 militants of the RSS were put behind bars. It became a manhunt, a hunt for Brahmins of the Maharashtra. They let the crowds of Gandhi supporters loose against the Brahmins of Maharashtra, which was the caste that the killer Gandhi belonged to, which was associated with the Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS.
The trial of Gandhi's assassins was held at the Red Fort, a highly symbolic choice. It was there that Nehru made his first speech to the people of independent India. Today, it's from the Red Fort that the Prime Minister addresses the crowds during national festivals. India was a democracy, and therefore the accused Gandhi assassins had the right to trial.
Ce procès du Fort Rouge, il va donner à Nathuram Godse.
The trial at the Red Fort gave Nathuram Godse a wonderful platform.
Même s'il y a des avocats.
He undertook his own defense.
Et il explique que par fidélité,
even though he had lawyers, it was he who pleaded his case,
et à la Bhagavad Gita qui justifie,
and explained that his belief in Hinduism
par fidélité aussi,
and the Bhagavad Gita justified the violence, his faith in the Hindu nation that Gandhi had betrayed.
Eh bien, il a débarrassé le pays.
They had to rid the nation of this man because he'd shown constant weakness in the face of Pakistan.
Faiblesse permanente vis-à-vis du Pakistan. Donc c'est une opération de salubrité.
It was an operation of extreme public service.
Politique. Ce n'est pas une action d'un déséquilibre.
The real politic, not the wild ideas of someone deranged that had turned into action. It was considered very thoughtful.
On the 10th of February 1949, the judgment was there. Nathuram Godse, Narayan Apte were hanged. Madan Lal Pava, Vishnu Karkare, and myself were sentenced to life.
Today, the Hindu Mahasabha, the great Hindu assembly that Nehru banned, has a new foothold on the streets of Delhi. At the entrance to their headquarters in the heart of the capital, there is a bust of Savarkar, the party ideologist at the time of Gandhi's assassination by Nathuram Godse.
Nathuram Godse himself said that I have murdered Gandhi. Take me for arrest. There is no question. Nathuram Godse belonged to Hindu Mahasabha, no doubt, but Hindu Mahasabha was not belong to Gandhi murder. This is the decision of High Court. Hindu Mahasabha has no part in the murder of Gandhi.
There was a very close link between the leader of the Hindu Mahasabha and the assassin, the main assassin and the main organizer of the conspiracy of the Mahatma. And Nathuram Godse had been a close associate of Savarkar for at least a decade before the assassination. And this man Savarkar was directly involved, not just ideologically or inspiring, but directly involved in the conspiracy to murder Mahatma Gandhi.
One thing is on record. Savarkar was photographed surrounded by the entire assassination group.
Gandhi lui-même, après ce premier attentat,
Gandhi, after the first murder attempt, had said that maybe they were justified.
peut-être a-t-il raison. Peut-être.
Maybe I count for too much in the new independent India.
Dans cette Inde indépendante, on est dans une situation.
It was the kind of situation which resembled a Greek tragedy,
Où la victime et
in which the
l'assassin
victim
sont
and his assassin
connivents.
find themselves in a kind of connivance. Gandhi was in the depths of despair. His ideas had not worked out. The violence between Hindus and Muslims had continued in spite of him, and the partition had taken place despite him.
Il est de trop.
It was too much. He hadn't served the cause to which he was committed, and in this new India, cut in two, what part was there for him to play?
Peut-il vraiment servir?
For Nehru, the Prime Minister of the new India, the priority was to raise the country from its extreme poverty. Everything had to be reconstructed. For him, according to socialist principles. There were massive public works to accomplish, heavy industry to build.
After independence, Nehru went all out for the modernization of India, the economic modernization, in developing large-scale industries, in building large dams, which he described as the new temples to India, which would replace the older temples. It's difficult to know how Gandhi would have responded to this had he been alive after 1948. And it's likely that Gandhi and Nehru would have come into some conflict over this, because Nehru didn't really put very much into trying to maintain the Gandhian economic program.
But Nehru stayed faithful to Gandhi's democratic ideals. In 1952, he organized the biggest national election in the world. It was a triumph for the Congress Party and for Nehru. Thereafter, he won each election until his death in 1964. And always present, always at his side as his valuable counsellor was his only daughter, Indira. She had married a Bombay lawyer, Ferozi Gandhi, who, although bearing the same name, had no family links with the Mahatma. Indira Gandhi would have two sons. They would spend most of their time with Nehru. At the same table, the grandfather, the daughter and the grandson, Rajiv. All three would be Prime Ministers of India. 3 generations of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty.
That I will uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India.
Shortly after the death of her father, Indira would be named Prime Minister.
Discharge my duty
Prime Minister for the Union.
as the Prime Minister for the Union.
In 1984, she would be shot dead by Sikh extremists. As Hindu tradition prescribes, it was her eldest son, Rajiv, who lit her funeral pyre. In response to public emotion, there was only one choice for the next Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi, son of Indira, grandson of Pandit Nehru.
Nothing is more important than the unity and integrity of our nation. India is indivisible. Secularism is the bedrock of our nationhood. It implies more than tolerance.
While a student at Cambridge, Rajiv had met Sonia, a young Italian. They married in India and had 2 children. Rajiv had no real wish to follow a political career, but he obeyed the wishes of his mother, Indira. In 1991, it was Rajiv's turn to be assassinated. His son Rahul and daughter Priyanka were too young to take over. And Sonia, his widow, wanted nothing to do with the political world which had killed her husband. It seemed like the end of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty. The Congress party of Gandhi and Nehru entered a difficult period. At Ayodhya, a little town in the north, the Hindu nationalists found a way to bounce back and mobilize popular support. They incited the destruction of a mosque, which had been constructed during the 16th century at the birthplace of the Hindu god Ram. The Hindu extremists determined it necessary to burn down the mosque and to build a temple to the glory of the Hindu god Ram on the same site.
Gandhi believed in tolerance. He believed in a secular state in which the state would not be committed to any one particular religion, whereas the Hindu right felt that the nation state had to be rooted within religions which originated in India, namely within Hinduism.
Advani, the nationalist leader, inflamed the crowds of Hindus crossing India in a Toyota transformed into a mythical Hindu chariot. Militants collected the sacred bricks with which they planned to construct the Ram temple once the mosque had been razed. This was unacceptable provocation for 12 million Indian Muslims. Advani's aggressive gamble became the central theme of Indian politics for 10 years. Because of this issue, Hindu nationalism found renewed success. On the 6th of December 1992, a crowd of Hindu extremists bypassed indecisive officials and the unmotivated forces of law and order and reduced the mosque to rubble. Riots broke out throughout India. Muslims were hunted down, and in Bombay the scenes of violence recalled the massacres of the partition era. The horrific strategy paid off. Muslims were now held responsible for all the evils and all the failures in a country which was 80% Hindu. The nationalists reaped the harvest of their hate campaign. In 1998, they won the national elections and governed the country for 6 years.
I think perhaps most important of all is that Gandhi believed very strongly always in talking to your opponent, to winning your opponent around by dialogue, by conversation, also by charm, but by trying to win people over, you know, by using your influence. Whereas the members of the Hindu right, we find time and time again, don't believe in this. They believe in using violence to achieve their ends. They don't believe you should debate with an opponent, you should just squash them, you should crush them. And you see this time and time again in the way they act.
In May 2004, contrary to all expectations, the Congress party bounded back, and all eyes were on its leader, Sonia Gandhi, the widow of Rajiv. She gave in to the political demon to safeguard the future of her children and to ensure the continuity of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty.
Bharat Mata ki Jai! Bharat Mata ki Jai! Bharat Mata ki Jai! Bharat Mata ki Jai! Bharat Mata ki Jai!
Even though she always wears a sari and speaks in Hindi, the nationalists never miss an opportunity to brand her as the Italian woman. So as not to handicap her own side, she turned down the proposition that she become Prime Minister. However, she continues to lead the Congress party. Every 30th of January, the anniversary of Gandhi's death, the people pay homage at the place of his cremation. Today, none of India's leaders is Hindu. The President, Abdul Kalam, is a Muslim. The Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, is a Sikh. And a Christian, Sonia Gandhi, leads the Congress party, which holds the majority in Parliament.
If Gandhi has left a positive message for India, it is certainly that of multiculturalism. It was his idea from the start, and from the start he was a man who defended the religious minorities and defended the peaceful cohabitation of communities. This multiculturalism is his most important positive legacy to us.
Each Friday, a small group of Gandhi disciples gathers to spin cotton at his cremation site. The same spinning wheel, the same gestures, the same physical movements, spinning cotton to defend India against imports. Today, the message of the disciples is more an incantation than a real economic policy. Until the beginning of the 1990s, India existed in a kind of self-sufficiency. The block against foreign products by the super-efficient customs authorities protected the country from foreign imports. Everything on sale was labelled Made in India. But in the past 15 years, the country's had to submit to globalization. Young people in the big cities pack into the new shopping centres, the new temples of India.
If Gandhi returned to India today, he would be horrified to see how much the country, and the middle classes particularly, have plunged into Western consumerism. The man who preached the self-sufficiency of each village, the defense of the weak and a form of aestheticism which says, don't consume more than you need and respect nature. There was a whole ecological dimension in Gandhi's message.
10 months after having retaken power from the Nationalists on the 12th of May 2005, the Congress Party decided to celebrate with great pomp and ceremony the anniversary of Gandhi's opening up of the salt trade. As Mahatma Gandhi had done 75 years earlier, hundreds of young people walked the same route, 358 kilometers in 26 days. Sonia Gandhi was with them on the first day. All those taking part wore the uniform of the Congress Party, immaculate white clothes and forage caps. They symbolized Gandhi perfectly. Sonia's son, Rahul, is now 35. He's the great-grandson of Nehru, and he's finally decided to enter politics. He joined the marchers on the last day, as they arrived at this beach in Gujarat, where 75 years ago to the day, Gandhi shook the British Empire to its foundations by simply gathering a handful of salt. No longer the 35mm film of the 1930s, but digital video. But the cameras were there to capture the moment. Many of the ideas of Gandhi have been swept aside in the name of globalization. But his message of peace remains, a fraternal sentiment which could unite all Indians in spite of their differences. The rejection of hatred, a hate which is always capable of rising from the ashes. A hate which killed the father of the Indian nation.